Okay, so 7th of the 7th. This is a GPMS.world representative meeting. We haven't done one for a while, so it's good to be back. This is the 7th of the 7th, or 7th of July, 2024. And there's been quite a few upturns and shifts since the last meeting, which I think was looking at it about 10, 11 weeks ago, which is perfect for the 3 monthly or the 10-week cycles, which have been ongoing lately. Nevertheless, this one is now called a representative meeting. There was a change of, let's say, title. I don't know, better word. Contributors and the idea of contribution and all of this is now shifted into representatives. After all, each that is contributing or contributing to GPMS is by definition a GPMS representative, or they are at least representing GPMS. So we've changed the nomenclature of the titles for that. So now there is no more contributors channel or contributors. Everybody that is GPMS is representing GPMS, as is the equality of GPMS. There are a few other things that we will go into, I'm sure. I know Rick's got a little list that I'd like to cover as well. One of which, there's a couple of updates which we need to bring in quite early. In fact, let's just do it straight away. Let's bring in one of the few. We were given go ahead by Prime Creator Father to start to move the website forward in a different manner. We've been trying to do this for a wee while with the About Us page, with Get Involved pages, and with different pages, expanding the existing website. We were finding it difficult, but what's transpired now is it's time for us to build a second one. And this means that we are now in development of a secondary website, which would be a GPMS representative or community hub website that is going to be run predominantly, well, no, like the main site is, but this will be a community hub site where much more of the information that we would wish for the main site to hold can be put onto it. Educational stuff, spiritual teachings, and anything like this that one's wish to put in there. This is the area that we're developing now, a community hub side of it, so we can show what's going on in team communities. We will bring this through, and this will develop into a more socially organic structure where membership maybe in that social communities, boardrooms, community boards, and this sort of idea would move away from the social media platforms and into a standalone site. So this site now is under development. This is beautiful. Sister Renata has put her hand up for this one. She's developing the main aspect of this, and this will be unveiled, released, unleashed. I was going to say, but whichever, in the not too distant, at least its basic form, for us to then continue to build with. We've seen that we've initiated a panel of 72 representatives. This, I'm sure Rick will talk a little bit more about. Just as a first heads up and preliminary heads up on that one, the first meeting for that, for those that have put their hand up and thrown their hat into a ring for the 72, will be next Saturday, 8 p.m. Bangkok time, which should give enough for all of the representatives involved in there to be able to attend that first meeting. This will be a preliminary meeting, an introductory meeting, and then we will represent or present GPMS to the world, maybe the week after or the week after that, from this panel representatives. Having said that, as a starter, I would love to pass this over to that way Rick, who can continue this. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you all so much for all you do, have done, and will do. It's a pleasure. Thank you all. Over to you, Rick.
Uh, Thank you, Lee, brother, and for hosting this meeting and all of the European East Asia meetings. Did you say next Sunday or next Saturday for our preliminary?
Saturday.
Saturday. Okay, thank you. I need to write that down for our North American meeting. We'll have later tonight. I'll attend. Great. That's excellent. Lee, before we go, can you perhaps just in alignment with what you were saying, we also need to open up more of an energetic avenue for the spiritual ascension aligned community. Could you just elaborate on that as also part of the reasoning for the hub, the other site? Thank you.
Yeah. So with the main site being what the main site is, from the very foundational beginnings of it, it has to be inclusive, and it wasn't going to be educational. GPMS, we know the way it's been presented, the way we keep it, the way I'd like to simplify it is it's a swaddling baby. It's fresh born to the planet, doesn't need to explain itself, describe itself, or tell people why it's here. It must be realized. So we knew from the very beginning that it would be very difficult to put educational or exclusive areas onto the main website because it must cater for the whole of human consciousness, if you will, and not just areas. So putting anything in that maintained a viewpoint that would satisfy one group of the people relatively, like the spiritual communities, would by definition exclude other communities that weren't following that pathway, which made it very difficult to juggle the information on the main website and not dilute the truth of what that website is and how GPMS is to be realized and not explained. It's our job to explain it, but the website doesn't. Otherwise, we dilute the meaning and the message. It's a new world instrument. Bringing it back and putting old world information into it really brings it down. So we were always aware of this as we were building it and moving through this. Getting to this point now, we can see that there is still a major spiritual community out there who are yet to be unified, who are yet to come together in unity around one common goal. In fact, many separate um, adventures or ventures that are being undertaken, all of which are falling down and failing because they are not inclusive. So this new area that we're building now currently is to allocate some exclusivity, if you will, a spiritual community area, teachings that are arranged around that, other areas around what other people can be doing, and different areas that we can put into this community site, which is the bridge. Let's call the community site the bridge. The GPMS website is the new world, and the community site would be the bridge, and therefore what it will contain will be all of the information to bridge that gap. And this brings in the Rick will call it the Essenes, the other versions of spiritual brothers and sisters on the plane will have something to focus towards. So it's more arranged around this, and we've got a lot more, as we can see within the group, that are already along that spiritual path. So there's a lot of information that we can give into that pathway, but we must also maintain an opening for the other layers of consciousness which aren't quite there yet. And this is what we can juggle with on that community site. Hopefully, brother, that continues what it was that you were wishing me to say, or along those lines anyway.
No, indeed. Thank you, brother. You articulated so beautifully. That's why I love your presentation more than mine. I say, Lee, will you do it? This one of my anticipations in the beginning, community, the ascension community, and the spiritual communities, all inclusive, that I had anticipated they'd been immediately aligned with the divine GPMS world and replacement system. For one of the common denominators and one of the themes, as Lee at least alluded to, within the spiritual communities, is the great change that needs to occur, but also needs to be facilitated by us. So by taking that common theme, if you will, and realizing it. And then if one is to look at GPMS.world, they will see that it is it. GPMS.world is the missing link, meaning that it is the direction, the strategy, the guidance, and the end point with the guidelines that we need to take everything forward. So what we are doing is what we were given. What Lee is saying is open up more of an inviting avenue energetically for the spiritually awakening, ascension inclined, not only individuals, but the groups, because also the groups should ideally have been aligned more with GPMS.world now, and also spreading and purveying the information and the awareness of GPMS out there and say, okay, this is it. This is what we were here for, and we recognize it. Yet, again, as I anticipated, we were not quite there yet, but with what we're given now, we are right on the cusp of this, is what I believe. So I'll go now to the 72 panel that we were told to construct. So Lee and I do a lot of divine collaboration, and when we're in just conversation and collaboration, many of, if you will, the divine channels and instructions are opened up and given to us. So we know that we work on this level, if you will, in direct connection with divinity to guide GPMS forward, as well as I would like to say all parts of the ascension as well. And we do this humbly and modestly and without conjecture or speculation. And I need to say that we don't act on what we think. We act on the guidance of what we are given. And for the most part, not entirely 100%, but I would say in the 90% plus range, the direction we are given is exact. Now, that margin of error between 93% and 100, that is because we're in incredible time of rapid change, where we are given one thing in a moment. However, because there are so many variables out there in the upliftment in frequency and the vibration of individuals that are also co-creators like us, it creates such a flux of variables that it's at times kind of hard to determine the actual outcome into the timeline. Nevertheless, we know modestly and humbly enough that we follow the given information in the now, and we do know that sometimes things are subject to change without notice. But I wanted to share that. But for the most part, um, everything is great, and we keep going forward. So we were told, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks ago, we needed to construct a 72 panel of light leaders, if you will, representatives of GPMS to publicly produce, purvey to the world. So with this, our instructions are to comprise a panel. It doesn't necessarily need to be 72. In approximately 2 weeks' time, we publicly go forward if we have 54 on that panel, or if we have 119. The 72 number is just a description, if you will, for now. So that doesn't really literally mean that's the number to be on the panel. But it is, it had to be 72 also to set a direction in a goal point divinely, without explaining all of the divine particulars and reasoning why. Nevertheless, currently, to my knowledge, we have 36 have stepped forward to comprise this panel. So I will say, with my anticipation, when we were given this, these numbers are much greater than what I anticipated. So we're so grateful with this. And during the course of the next 2 weeks, also, it is quite possible, as I said, we will come closer to the number of 72, if not surpass it. But again, it doesn't matter. Our instruction is we go forward with what we have, and we keep increasing those numbers as we go forward. Basically, what the 72 panel is, I'll just call it 72 panel. Basically, it will be an introduction of all of us, where where we are currently at, and if you will, a geographical area or region that we're representing for the people. And um, and with this, with the introduction, what we intend to do is we go around the panel with our first public broadcast at just each one introducing themselves with about 2 sentences, the region, what they're from, and they're representing GPMS.world, or just keep it very simple. And we will be presenting to the world the simple, I would say logical, but also divine element of GPMS. And basically, it's a replacement system that has been divinely guaranteed for the planet. So for Gaia, for Earth. So we'll keep it as simple, but what we are doing is showing the world that the panel is being constructed. The higher consciousness light leaders are here. They are gathering, they are growing very quickly. And it shows the people worldwide that they have a choice for their current system and who is taking things forward. Either the old political regime and dictatorship reality, or the new all-encompassing, all-inclusive GPMS replacement system. Real souls with GPMS. It's to show that we are serious and put out this public broadcast presentation of ourselves. To keep that simple, Lee, you might wish to add something in there if you want.
Not too much, but just for those that are interested, 72 is an interesting number with regards to this. Currently, we've got 36, which is 312s. 12 12s is 144. We're working Northern Hemisphere. Half of 144 would be 72. This goes up in octaves. Eights as well are involved in this, and a lot of other things that are going up and down with regards to this connection and the amplification of the energetic number with regards to this 7-2, which obviously is 9 as well, 7 plus 2. A lot of these things come in when we're talking, and they are, let's say, they are speculative relevance. Speculating, they have relevance, but they are speculative in the moment because they don't really matter. Like Rick is talking about, the outcome of what we're doing is more important than the why the numbers, why this. It doesn't matter. This is all where we're moving forward to, and we're going past these moments. So we were given that 48 were already within a GPMS, and that would leave 24 that weren't. We have 36 so far. This is all when we just talk about it objectively without putting anything to them, that's where we are. So there's currently 12 more within GPMS that will put their hand up according at that timeline anyway, and 24 without to join. And that would satiate that 72. But as Rick said, that really doesn't make much difference because it could be 5,063. You know, relatively at the end of it, it is what it is. I don't wish to take that much further, brother, because we're going to go into this more next week. So I don't think the panel representation needs to be necessarily dug into too much more than that at this stage, unless you've got anything more specific to do with it. It's a little bit open-ended, isn't it, at the moment?
Yeah, thank you for that, Lee. I just wondered, is there any questions from any participants of the meeting before we continue forward at this point?
Oh, it seems not, my friend. It seems not. So
All right.
let's pull up the next talking point.
Well, our next point, and these points today is mostly for Lee's elaboration, if you will. The next one, I'll begin it, is we want to put this out public as well, is that we're able to add the big blocks of consents, and this is very important. And as a result, in the last 3 months, we were able to increase the amount of consents by approximately 63, 64% in just 3 months. But also 10 or 15,000 names on a list can be added in just a matter of a few minutes. So if you wish to elaborate on that, brother, that'd be great.
Yeah. So again, I'll reiterate, taking it back to the not the difficulties, but the way that the plan has been unfolded and developed. We weren't we weren't, let's say, well, it wasn't it wasn't we weren't allowed, allocated, whatever the words are. It wasn't divinely designated for us to use an automated system to import names into GPMS. It had to be done manually. It had to be done through a voluntary action, through choice, through free will. And so we opened up, we got to, I'm not sure how many it was, but a couple of months ago, we were getting to a point where we had thousands, like 30, 40, 50,000 of names on a list. And what we were doing was developing a consent team, an input team. So we were trying to get people together that would actually allocate a half an hour to, well, Tony and Sister Bala, who is here, many hours per day, inputting names into the GPMS, because we need to get the names in there. Otherwise, we can't show the unity. And the names have all agreed, but they haven't got the technology to add themselves. So we beautifully, Sister Bala is doing a lot of this in India, with some others in India, and beautifully Tony and a few others, Jenny as well, here, allocated their time. Brother Dean, Sister Mariana. A lot of people have been trying to help out with putting consents in, which was the divine pathway that we were on. Now, it came to pass that Rick and I had a collaboration maybe 2.5 months ago, where at the beginning of the collaboration, the question was asked to the divine, can we use an automated import script? And the answer came back as no. At the end of that, about 45 minutes later, with our collaboration and whatever we'd said in the middle of it, that timeline had now changed. And whatever it was that Rick and I had talked about had allocated that now we could use a scripted import. So effectively, without going into too much detail, even though I'd like to keep everything transparent, it allowed us now to import names in directly without having to physically type them in. Now, this was successfully trialed and ran with Sister Lodi in the Philippines, who has got many names there that are being itemized onto Excel sheets, etc. And they could be transferred to us without having to go in. We could just import them in one fell swoop. And this is what we've done. When you've got a list of 40,000 and you want a team to add these, okay, that was the path we were on and that was what we did. But in this divine time, now we don't need to anymore. And this opens up for much larger groups and much other groups. If there's groups out there, spiritual groups, communities, tribal groups, social groups, whatever they are, however many names they have, as long as we've got them on Excel, we can import them in a couple of minutes into the system. Therefore, leaders of groups, people with the voice of the people, representatives of groups, trusted individuals, etc., can allocate the names of their teams, whoever, and put this through the system very quickly to say yes, 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 which of course which will speed up the allocation of consents hugely, relative to where we were before. So this is where we are currently with that import system. It works brilliantly. It's very simple. It's all in house. We've had to develop it. This is not something we bought in. It's not something that we've had to market in. We got to the point where we could design it, code it, allocate it, and utilize it within GPMS, through voluntary contribution and through divine allocation, through it being the right time. So we are at that time, and from there on now we're moving through this new panel, this new website, etc., ready for those consents to come in their droves and push this forward to inception very soon, let's say. Hopefully, brother, that's enough for that. It gave what it needed to.
Thank you. I believe you covered it thoroughly, but also couple things I forgot in alignment with the 72 panel. What we should mention here is the 72 panel, we have opened that up as a call to action, if you will, worldwide, meaning any sovereign group leader or what have you can come on this panel and be part of GPMS as well. So meaning it's not comprised fully of who is in GPMS now, that also it will attract to whatever divine degree it needs to other leaders and speakers of the people. So we have put that out publicly as a call to action. Come on, step up. And as Lee says, we need to get this ball rolling.
Yeah, and with regards to this panel of 72, I'd like to add at this stage that you need to say yes, please, or however, yes, I'd like to. Put your hand up. This isn't something you could just hope will happen for you. This is something that people need to step into. And this is a role, this is a designation. This is not something that's fly by night or flippant. It does require a level of commitment's a good word for it, determination, assured self direction, self assuredness, and a lot of these things are what we are. Well, it's inevitable. So when one's put their hands up, they're in. There is this is self chosen. This is not designations. This is not vetted. If you put your hand up, you're in. That's where it is. This is the same with all of GPMS. At this level, however, now into this representation, there is a level of commitment and there is a level of trust and loyalty to yourself. There is a level of self accountability and self assurance and self responsibility that must be already embodied. Otherwise, it will be in and out and in and out. And we're at this stage now where this is going to be a more solid base, a solid representation. So I wanted to put that in, even if it sounds a little bit stricter. It's purely necessary, is a better word for it, as we move forwards. These levels of self-assuredness and divine authority will be embodied by those on this panel. So let's see how this goes and watch it unfold.
Absolutely. And again, GPMS is the most serious thing to ever happen to the planet Earth. And we are indeed serious with this, as we all know. Having said this, ideally, I was going to, but I forgot and didn't. With our current 36 members of the 72 panel that we are comprising, I would like to look at the gender of that and just get a quick, if you will, how many feminine and how many masculine. Now, the reasoning for this, ideally, it should be very close, if not more, feminine with this as we take it forward with GPMS. But it's also important that we have close to a balance with the amount of feminine representation there as well. And it's perfectly fine if it does go the panel to, let's say, 70% feminine representatives. That's fine as well. But what is important is at least the divine feminine representation ideally should be hopefully around 40% or above, even to 70. Go ahead.
You've gone into a bit of robot there, brother. We've lost you a little bit. But just to help you out with this one, I've just
Go
done a
ahead.
quick count, and it looks like around 20 feminine, 16 masculine, maybe 21, 15, I'm not sure, around about there. So a little bit 70%, 30%, 60%, 40% between those two.
Thank you, brother. That's a beautiful and perfect proportion, and ideally how it should be with this overall ascension and what we're doing. And again, the mothers and children worldwide are so important, and they need to be up front not only speaking for as well. So this is excellent, good news, and this is how we go forward with it. So thank you.
Your internet connection's quite funky. You're either a hyped up dwarf or a slowed down robot. It's beautiful, brother.
Is it
Kind of
intelligible?
enjoy it.
Or was it, the word, was it,
It's
yeah, but
intelligible.
you can hear what I was saying.
It's yes, it's translatable. It's all right. It's just about. It does come to a halt every now and then, and then speed back up again, but it's okay. No, it's coming across.
Excellent with that. Well, I have what you would call the optimal connection here, and right beside the rotor and full bars. It's with this laptop. And Father just said the other day when I asked him, it's time for a new one. So,
Good.
on divine timing. Yeah. Okay, I'll stop right there. And if you wish to carry things forward.
I'm just trying to think what else we've done lately. The website, the new website, that there's a lot to come into that. The old website, the About Us page is continuing. That should be, we should have at least 8 to 10 Guardians on the About Us page very shortly, and a Get Involved page, which will be a little bit more linked. But these what we can do with these is take them onto the community page, so we can do a lot more on there and put a lot more a lot more information can be on there. So I don't wish to go back through all of that yet. The panel we've done, there's lots of other things ongoing, brother, but they're all outside of GPMS relatively. So I'd like to I think we can open this up to everybody else at this stage and ask anybody else what they would like to talk about or bring to the table. So it's an open floor. Put your hands up or just speak out. Obviously, just be kind to everybody else around you when they're speaking. Otherwise, we'll have to call it by hands. So, anybody else would like to add something at this stage, Brother
Yeah,
Dean?
I was just going to ask a question about is there any young representatives, like young children, representing Nessa's daughter?
No, not what as a representative. Well, as a P1.
Well,
Sorry, as a
just
72.
yeah, just with the energy, just bringing in that the
No,
energy a little bit more of that. No,
I don't necessarily see the 72 panel at this stage being um, having children upon it. I don't think
right,
that I
okay,
don't think that I don't think so. I don't see that as a necessity at this stage. It doesn't. What the child? No, I think there may be a little in different areas possibly, but not in that 72 panel.
right, okay.
It, I know what you mean. It'd be lovely if we could have a full panel of children and just a couple of adults on there. Yeah, no, it that amount of the amount of, let's say, stuff that needs to be gone through relatively. No, let the children be children.
Uh, Lee, if I may, though, we don't limit or restrict. So, it would also be beautiful just to have a child's presence or a few on.
Absolutely,
But
absolutely. I do agree.
yeah, thank you. Having said this, I believe Brother Dave is here. If he wished to share something with, all he shared with I was, I believe, some between 10 and 16-year-olds that he was speaking to. Please go ahead and share, Dave.
Yeah, it's a dual kind of story. We were going to discuss, if you remember, Rick, the 10 to 16-year-old plus the occurrences that are happening in August, September, October of this year to precipitate a push towards the November completion. So this story blends into itself, so to speak. Initially, the story starts with we run a gift shop here in southern BC, and I had made a bird bath for a customer, a concrete top and a welded tripod bottom. The customer declined the one I had made initially, and So I had to make a second one. The second one I just threw out in front of the shop just because it was something that we could sell on the side. Somebody came by one day, random, I don't know who they were, and they threw a quarter into it. So a 25-cent piece. That inspired me to put together a sign. And the sign is this, and it's getting faded now. But what it says is, take some if you need it, leave some if you can spare it. Equality and unity for all. And then what I did is, you can see in felt pen, I wrote in GPMS.world worldwide referendum at a later date. So this sign has inspired people to start loading up this concrete bird bath with money. Initially change, lots of loonies and toonies, $1 and $2 pieces. And then now they're throwing bills in, $5 bills, $20 bills. So as a side note, I had a customer come in, or a few customers come in and say, you know, a lot of people are moved. And a customer come in and say that, oh, that would only last 5 minutes, you know, in the big center, big city. Even though we have a fair bit of traffic here, it's, you know, tourist traffic. We're still a very, very small town. So the point is, this one day, about a week and a half ago, after closing, I saw 4 young people sort of descend on the front of the building. And of course, they noticed this big lump of money in this bin, and they were sifting through it and doing various things. And I thought I'd better walk out because, you know, the money is there for the underprivileged, so to speak. And not that I'm judging them. I mean, they obviously weren't underprivileged. You could tell by the way they were dressed and carrying themselves. In any case, I went out and had a discussion with them and mentioned to them that that it's there for people who really need it. And I just wanted to mention that. And in this instance, they kind of played sort of submissive. They apologized, and then we had our little discussion, and they went off the property, and then they ran down the street. I went over and checked the bin, and they actually had taken out all the loonies and toonies, so all the big coins, and they took the $5 bills at that time. So that's fine. I mean, I don't have any aspirations for the sign. The sign was, I was guided to put it out there, and I've had other people drain the bin at times as well. And I can't say for sure they were underprivileged either. But in any case, that's not my judgment call. So what happened was that startled me, because I had considered taking the sign down if it's going to be subject to abuse. And what startled me was the next day, the 2 middle-aged boys came into the shop. They were into our shop, and I was surprised to see them there because of what had happened. You know, whether they thought that I had missed the pertinent details or whatever. We ended up having this amazing conversation that expanded on the original one, and that led into the discussion of GPMS.world and how we're moving to a better world, and it's good for people like their age because, of course, they want to have a future. The older of the 2, they both appeared very benevolent, very humble. So if I read that correctly, that's fantastic. The older of the 2 opened up his wallet, and he had 2 or 3 20s in there. He said, okay, this is my money. This is the money I worked for. Can you change this into 5s so we can put it back into the bin, and there'll be money for various others at that point. And so that's the brief description of that discussion. And they came back a second time to let me know that the one had actually gone down to the library and signed up for GPMS. And so he was number 1012. I've been watching that carefully. And that leads me into the second part of the discussion critically, because it ties right in. So he was 1012. We've had 1000 $1,013 and $1,014 here in Canada sign up. So that's a very, I've been watching it, and I remember somebody else, perhaps no, it was the guy from Toronto. I forget his name, and he said that all his efforts, and he's looking at the numbers, and they're not really moving forward. Well, I put out a video on my regular channel the other day. In Canada, it's liberty.com, LBRTI.com. It's a blog site that people were, a couple was inspired to put up probably three and a half years ago now. And so I have videos on there. I get hundreds of viewers there. I put out a video most recently on specifically highlighting GPMS. We've got the sign on the highway here, a busy tourist highway. And then I've got this sign out in front of the shop. And I also have cards made, and I also have tickets made that I've dropped off at stores. So the point of the matter is, in keeping with the brother from Toronto, also I'm questioning at the rate of this increase. And I'm not saying it to be negative, I'm saying it to be realistic. So with all that work and effort, and still we've only had like 3 signups in that length of time. Now, the reality of that comes into this second part of the discussion, and that pertains to the August, September, October disclosure. I was initially reported that we had the introduction of a divine influence on 15th of November 2023, where they're working from the top and sort of cleaning out, as you might say. This coincides with an increased disclosure rate from things like mainstream media. So I've assembled, since November of last year, a list that I currently have 110 enhanced signs, indicators of disclosure, many from mainstream media. I have a quote from the Bible on divine intervention. I also have a quote from the Urantia book on divine intervention. My point is that this steadily increasing disclosure will create a steadily increasing corresponding disruption as the people are somewhat forced to understand of what's going on the planet. These are the things that all of us here have been researching for 4 years and bringing forward, and in many cases ignored. And I get repeated confirmations of that in our gift shop, because we get this influx of steady flow. So the point is that this increase in this ramp up of disclosure creates a serious form of disruption in August, September, October. And that sort of cataclysmic event, if you might call it that, will be what is needed to urge people to search for a better option. And of course, as you all know, we sit here with that better option for the masses. So that's kind of the twofold story that led one into the other. I'll leave it at that. And thanks everybody for all you're doing, and onward and upward.
Wonderful, Dave. Thank you so much, brother. Excellent overview.
Can I add a little bit with that, Dave, in what you're saying in regards to that flow? Brother Lee told me a year ago about a flow. I didn't know what that flow meant. I would resist, I would push into it, I would do everything that wasn't the flow. Everything. I was telling everybody, every soul we come across and have given GPMS will sign it. We've got this expectation they're going to do it there and then. Every person you've given that to is opened their higher self. If they've observed it and read it, they have chosen at that moment not to sign, but they're going to. So every person we give it is going to. But the flow. Now, I've been out in Nepal by myself, talking to random. One day I go into the city of Kathmandu, I talk to 200 people. Not one of them people signed. And then all of a sudden, I just think about the flow of my day. I get up. Okay, I've got to go and get some food now. I sit in a restaurant. A young man sat there. I give him GPMS. He signs it there and then in front of me in my flow, not in any way trying to control it. The more I see that, the more I do it. Wow, another person. Wow, another person. The flow takes me to the people that are ready now. Every time I try and force it, I'm giving that soul the choice. I know they're going to sign it. I know their higher self is seeing what they're seeing, but they're not ready. And that's okay. They're going to when they're ready. And very shortly, that's going to happen for all because consciously, more are going to be able to observe that. We're not in control of that. The creator is in control of that. We just go with that flow. But when I go in that flow and just allow the flow of the day and somebody's just sat next to me or somebody's tapped me on the shoulder, somebody's spoken to me, I always believe there's a reason for it. So I allow and go into it a little bit. No expectations, no worries about whether they're going to sign it. But that flow has shown me there is a gap. It's already happened. So we don't need to force it too much. We just need to give it. And if we don't give it to everybody, then we're judging everybody. We just speak it. GPMS. I've got nothing else to talk about. I don't wish to them to talk about what they want me to talk about. I don't want to talk about what they want to talk about. I'm just giving you love. There's the love. There's GPMS. But I can't have expectations of what they're going to do. But I know we've given that soul what they need. It's for them now to take it. But with young people as well, Dave, in Nepal, the young people, I can sit and have conversations without any distorted consciousness. They'll talk, they're in their heart, and I find it very, very easy to talk to younger people right now than I do others. But then all of a sudden another beautiful soul that's a little bit older and he's comfortable and he's beautiful and he's in a space where he can have a conversation. But it's always in the flow. Every time I go out and talk to hundreds of people, I come back afterwards and I don't feel disheartened anymore. But there was a time when I felt disheartened. Now I don't feel disheartened. I've given them the love. It's their choice.
I can parallel that a little bit. We used to have a truth center here where we had two large walls, top to bottom, with information. Our specialty is and was and continues to be the research into the fact that there is no virus. The virus does not exist. Exogenous pathogenic microorganisms do not exist. And so along the same lines, I have mentioned that, of course, many, many, many times over the 4 years. And I call it seed planting, which you referred to, Dean. And so I've planted that seed many, many times because it goes against the collective consciousness false reality. It doesn't go any further than that. But once they hear that, they can't unhear it. And so that's along the same lines. So I'll pass it over at that point. Thank you.
Can they feel love from us? Go on. Go on, Dave. Go on,
Absolutely. That's a critical point that we come from that area and also recognize the flow for sure.
I'd like to just put in something to what Dave and Dean are talking to here with regards to Dave. You're talking to a release of disclosure and cataclysmic events and bits and pieces like this, which yes, it's chaos and a little bit of disturbance. The disturbance, I like the word disturbance as well, into those distorted harmonics. But there is something else that's occurring that most people aren't speaking about, and that's the release of hell or the sacral energetic centers, the sacral areas of existence where all of the limitations and false beliefs and fear-based systems are actually based. We have come to find out. These energetic centers are also being manipulated, and we're manipulated by external frequencies. Obviously, that's not a case for us necessarily, but nevertheless, these triggers are from that storage area or from that lower orangey colored place. Now, we were given a month ago, I asked, will the sacral energy center be released within 3 months? And the answer came back as ambiguous. This would have been August, by the way. It was ambiguous. So we didn't have anything specific on that. We were collaborating the other day, a couple of days ago, and I asked, will it be released in 2 months? And the answer came back as yes. Now, this is the beginning of August. Now, if you take away all of the limitation and fear-based systems, or the vast majority of them, the sacral energetic centers from the people where all of the indoctrination and subconscious programming is triggered from, that disclosure looks very different, because the anger has been released, or is in the process currently of being released. For that sacral to be released, the anger must have come out, and that's been what's in process. There's too much. The word friction is a difficult one to use, because we can't even find a word for this that fits the release of these layers of density that have been ongoing and been in process heavily over the last period. This uplifts and releases the human experience into a higher range of harmonics, at the same time as higher information will be made, let's say, even more undeniable to the eyes of the masses. Their willingness and ability to ostrich, or to ignore or to deny that which is true, will be seriously altered once those limited areas are released. So we have a large, let's say, pincer movement for this August, September, October, prior to November. We've got a lot of information that could be or will be disclosed undeniably, with regards to the existing system and the demonics and the dark and the light and the entities that have been here doing all of the groundwork that everybody's been doing, as well as the release of self-serving or selfish energetics that have been utilized to imprison is probably imprison the mind of many, let's say. And we've all experienced this in the past in certain ways, that our own self-imprisonment, and broken through our own barriers and boundaries to release our own sacral energetics and harmonize through our own sense of self-judgment into self-accountability and self-responsibility, i.e. divine authority. So this uplift into a more divine designation, or a higher place of being, is being catered to 76% last time we heard by the divine in this period prior to that August, September, October news shed. So I'm very, very interested too, brother, in how this looks when those energies are released and the let's say truth is enforced or empowered, and what that does, what humanity does with that in unifying towards GPMS in the middle of November. We're in for a funky ride, I think, in the next period of time. Let's see. But it all uplifts everything, and the morality and the rise in the ethical actions, if you will, or the honorable actions of the children, the youth, the older youth, and the other ones that are evidencing themselves to us, is such an uplift. It's such a beautiful thing. Dean's talking about it in Nepal. You're talking about it there in Canada. And even though there's not that many yet that have joined Canada in Canada, and they seem to be resistant, we know that there's millions that are ready. So thank you so much, Dave. Brother Rick, you've got your hand up, my friend. Please continue.
Thank you, Lee. Just before we began this meeting today, Father come in very quickly with a message, and it's simple. Keep going forward. We are in ascension time, but also with the reminder that all of those in alignment go forward, but there are some that will not make it. But more or less, and this is in alignment with what we know and what we're saying, and it is our divine duty and obligation individually, to the extent to continue this forward. Yeah, with the children, we see again, ideally, I will speak for myself. The Rick feelings is ideally the children would have been taking this also more forward. However, again, we see repeatedly in the past that we need to, see this within the population within ages. And another thing I'll just mention here casually, we need to get more content on the Rumble platform. This was brought up a long time ago, so it's just I'm reiterating it right now as we speak for any. But also importantly, anyone on this panel or that may listen to this later, I just did an approximate count of Africa, seeing how many countries have at least one consent for GPMS. So what I did is I see approximately 16 countries in Africa have zero consent yet. With this, what I suggest is for any, if you have some spare time, you can go on our geo map on GPMS.world, and the countries are not listed. They don't have a name that has 0%, but you can bring up an Africa map and readily and easily identify the African countries that has zero consent yet. And if you wish, somehow within those countries, get some of the GPMS awareness in there. Ideally, we'd like to have, more of a coverage in there, but it has come to my attention because it's time. Also, for example, what I would do is I'd find a country or two in Africa that has no consent with GPMS yet, and I'd maybe go on Facebook and look to see if there's any community groups and begin to introduce something about GPMS in there to begin to seed it, at least in these other countries. It's just one way, that I would do it. And of course, there are a few other countries worldwide that we're not into yet, but I feel we are almost, we have approximately 155 countries worldwide that we have at least one consent from. But ideally, it'd be good to get these other 43 as well as introducing it in there. In Uganda, I'll carry on. I think Brother Lee's just having a break listening, but with Uganda, I wish to call Uganda as one of the highlights from Africa, and also Nigeria. They're pretty close in the rising numbers together. However, with Uganda, it's more of a structure and a networking and organizing that is occurring with the orphanages and the charities there. So Brother Wanderer, if you will, was vetting a lot of the ones that say they are heads of orphanages. So they needed to be vetted because there is scammers, as you know, all around the world, but also in Africa. They'll take pictures of children, say they're head of an orphanage, or they'll even take pictures of someone else from online and send them, as part of their scam. However, to circumvent all of that, we have physically boots on the ground, Wanderer and a few others that are accrediting the orphanages and bringing them all together. So bringing the children and the heads of the orphanages. So this is growing, but it's also, let's say, it's a great prototype structure for also areas like India, if you will. And I know I've mentioned this before, but I need to emphasize that it's continuously growing, and it's actually a beautiful thing. Being accredited, if you will, it makes them more easier and more able to get more funding temporarily to take them forward in, you know, these great times of desolation for, let's say, many African and even India brothers and sisters. So I wanted to add that in there. And with that, one more little thing on my notes, Lee, I think it's one more thing I'll throw in here right now. With Australia, I noticed a few consents again going forward, and we have her name is Renee Dubois. She is has joined the panel. She is currently in Australia, which is great. And we also have some other Australia GPMS members, representatives that will be also you'll see more of in the near future. And with Australia, again, why this is so important is that we need to GPMS ideally in Australia as well should have been going, you know, very rapidly forward like Canada and other countries. But the main thing is to say is that we do see, you know, some more of this interest being sparked. And again, one thing to always keep in mind, if you see one, let's say from Pakistan, if you see one consent comes in, you know, that could be the tip of the iceberg of a large group as well. So it's important never to underestimate what one consent can bring, and that's why we all keep an eye on this. And I know all of you, I believe for the most part, know this, but this is more so for the benefit of ones that may watch these meetings later to assist with any expectations or evaluations that they may have in the moment. So again, the power of one is very powerful, as we know. And if one consent comes in, that could bring a whole current nation, if you will, or most, just as an example. So thank you for that. And Brother Lee, I believe you're back and ready.
Yeah,
Michael,
I'd just like to add before
Sorry.
Mike, 2 seconds, Dean. Mike had his hand up, so I'd just like to just add this at this stage. We've just witnessed something in the UK about a vote and a choice, and this is ongoing in the US as well, a vote and a choice. These concepts of what just occurred are laughable and ridiculousness, but I'm going to put a different spin on this. And I'm going to say that right now is the ideal time for anyone in the old system who has been put into a position of power through the obfuscation of choice of the people, i.e., presidents, prime ministers, kings, queens, and all of these titles. That it wouldn't be a bad time for you to actually allocate the higher path for your people and hand over the documentation you have upon every single individual within your countries to GPMS to be imported into the GPMS database. And it would be the best thing that you've ever done under the watch of the dark entities that you are currently being manipulated by in the front of people. So this is just out to those that are currently overseeing warmongery, etc., etc. Maybe some names like Putin and Zelensky's and other ones that are in different areas. Starmers and other Muppeteers like this, and Trumps and Bidens and whoever you wish to call yourselves, and the clones and whatever the individuals are that are playing you. It wouldn't be a bad time now to utilize the import services that GPMS has to offer to allocate your people freedom and release them from the slavery which you know that they are currently under. Having said that, over to you, Brother Michael, because you had your hand up, my friend. So let's continue this.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's in the same thread, actually. I wanted to address the British elephant in the room because it's been on my mind recently. and looking at it through a GPMS inception lens, it was actually a good result, really, because what it did was it created an example that we can point to say, well, look, when you actually look at the numbers and the figures that came out afterwards, about half the people actually that were eligible to vote actually turned up to vote. And of that, I think the party that is now going into power only had about 34% of that vote. So they only had 34% of 50%. So it works out as they only actually have about maybe 15-16% of support, even if you could call it that. So what that then demonstrates, and what we can now point to as an example, because obviously one of the questions that gets raised almost immediately when we begin to talk to people about GPMS is feasibility. You know, they'll look at us and they say, do you think that's feasible? Do you think we could actually do that? How would that actually? Well, now we can point to examples such as this and say, well, do you think that's feasible? How feasible is the system you're in now? How can you justify any kind of feasibility for the system you are either participating in or have now given up participating in? If you're in part of the 50% that's given up participating in it, so that tells us now that there is a time upon us where the more and more, to a greater and greater degree and to greater and greater swathes of the population are going to now start asking the question of systemic feasibility. They're going to start asking themselves not who can we vote for, or how are we going to work our way out through this in the normal ways. They're now going to start asking questions such as, can we carry on with the systems that we currently have? Can we carry on doing things the way they've seemingly always been done? And people who would have never dreamt of asking those questions are now actually starting to, or will very soon be starting to ask themselves that question. And that is the time, well, that is a big significator, indicator that the time for GPMS is ready. It's ripe. It's now. Because
Michael, just on that note, you saw 50%. I actually saw 30%.
Yeah, well, obviously, with the BBC tried to push 60%. I think GB News said it was 52 or 54%. So it depends. Obviously, I'm talking about, but even if it was 60%, or even if it was like 54 and it wasn't, it doesn't matter. It's still, you're only taking up the overall percentage of what their actual support they can claim is up to about, at best, 18-19% of the population, of the voting population. So and they are already now claiming mandate, which is great. That actually it's a good thing, because what's going to happen now is they're going to start rubber stamping things 10 to the dozen, left, right, and center, which is going to increase pressure, which is going to every metric which contributes to people's realization of their indentured servitude, of their slavery, of the condition that they are actually in, is going to be amplified and multiplied now. That's a good thing. And it's going to be amplified and multiplied from coming from a group of people who, even by their own official numbers, only have, at best, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt. We'll give them a bit of gravy. At best, 20%, way less than a third of the population of the country. So the justification for that pressure isn't going to be there, because previously, in prior times, when there were landslides like that, they could turn around and say, "Oh, we have a mandate." So therefore, people have already accepted, de facto, to accept the pressure that's coming to them from what's going to roll out. This time, they have not got that excuse. They cannot say they have a definitive mandate, and there is no justification for the pressure that is about to come. And people are going to then be crying out for an alternative. Anything. We'll try anything now. Just give us your best, whatever it is. we need to start looking at other options. We're now entering the dawn of that time.
Yeah, this is
I'll step.
if I may, Mike, this is so beautiful. I didn't know this information, what obviously you, Lee, and Dean did. But quickly with it, what I wish to say, it's also showing reasonably and rationally that this small percentage cannot represent the majority of the people. So again, you know, how can they justifiably say with 15% support how they could represent an entire population of the nation? So we're seeing the numbers dwindle in the geopolitical area worldwide, which is very beautifully as well, but it's also the setup, the doors opening for GPMS to come in there very quickly. And I'll just go to 2016 again with the Trump election in the US. It was out of the voting population, it was only slightly over half of the American people, I think 53%, that actually voted in there. And again, Trump got in, if you will. Most of those were the awakened ones that were awakened at least to some degree. And but very importantly, it shows you in the US, but now we're seeing it in Britain, that yeah, most does not support any form of government. Thank you.
No, no, the nine, I think 9 million out of 67 million UK, or 9 million was the Tory, the party that got in. But with that, Trump won in 2016, only 53% voted, but that's okay because in 2020, 147% voted. So that kind of evened it out. If we're allowed to say that one, I don't know, whatever.
Well, there's play on numbers, but you know, when we get these lower ones, and there's a little bit of competition who has the more genuine numbers, but basically, without looking at the numbers, we don't need them. But it's great when we have some of these statistics to bounce off of as well. Thank you.
Yeah, but this voting idea and this idea of democracy or democracies, we've done this before. It's under an autocracy, which is a kleptocracy. There's lots of these ocracies, aristocracies, and et cetera, that all fit atop of the democracy, which is right at the bottom, the demos. And this idea is completely contrived and it's completely failing and never really worked. It's just the hope from the people that, or the belief from the people that it did, and the constant impact of media telling them how wonderful it was.
Can I just jump in here? I want to jump in with a humorous anecdote from the General Circus that occurred last week. Was because I decided to watch the whole thing as it came in on GB News. And just before I called it a night, at the end of it all, it's about 6 o'clock in the morning British time. A new news team came over, swapped over, and I forget the name of the guy, the presenter. He's a Northern Irish guy, and he's quite well known in British television. And I think he used to be on Good Morning Britain, if I remember rightly. But anyway, he came on with his co-presenter, and there was a moment when he passed it off to this pair who were doing all the statistical numbers, and as the camera moved away from him, his mic remained hot, and it had a hot. So as soon as the camera went away from him, he turned around. He's obviously turned around to his colleague, and he said, or to the panel members, and he said, "I think I just would like to say, I think this is criminal. What's happening? What?" And then it fades away. The guy who's doing the statistics looks over at him with the most evilest daggers. He's like, but that there was just this brilliant little snippet into the, you know, what's probably actually going on in the minds and the people who are running these media stations. It was just a little window onto the psychology and how much pressure they must now be feeling because of the amount of BS they have to shuffle to varying degrees from what they actually know is going on. And so it was a beautiful little moment, that, and I was really grateful for it. So sorry, I just wanted to share it.
Jenny, you got your hand up, my dear. Please jump in.
Yes, so I mean, it is just absolutely
You're quiet.
ridiculous. Oh, can you hear me?
You got. Hang on, try again. Maybe my volume,
I
please.
can hear you, Jen. I
Can
could
you hear
hear
me?
you.
Okay.
Ah,
Okay. I mean,
go.
it's just so ridiculous. I mean, I honestly can do nothing but laugh a bit now about it. I don't follow, I haven't been following it, but my husband showed me a little clip of Trump and Biden. And I mean, anyone with any simple bit of sense can see that neither of those could possibly run countries. I mean, they are both bumbling idiots, really. But that's not what I was going to say. What I was going to say was, like here in the UK as well, you know, it's so interesting. Everybody actually knows they're looking for a way out as well, but there's still this refusal to go out of that cage that they know, you know. And I've been reflecting on this, and for me it really does come down to that inability to take responsibility, because as long as you electing someone to govern you, you've got someone to blame as well. And I really think that yeah, on an individual level it really is about saying no more, enough is enough, and really taking responsibility for what we have all been a part of creating and what we are wanting to create going forward. Because I mean, you don't need to be even the slightest bit clever to see that these people are in no position to dictate anything to anybody, you know. And it really is enough is enough now, and that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
There is a fascinating psychological link between what you were talking about there, Jenny, about self responsibility, and there's a fascinating one from what would be the maternal caregiver or the caregiver, actually. And let's take away the maternal, but the caregiver for a child. And it's an innate emotional response that's very deep, it's very primal, that requires another to caregive, if you will. This has never been, it's been on purpose, has never been explored or explained in the past relative to what we understand. And what happens is between the age of 15 and 18, dependent, that shift of caregiver goes to the state. So without knowing it, we shift that gracious caregiver feeling to the state. Now, it doesn't matter what people say about your mum. You'll always love your mum. And it doesn't matter what people say about the state. You'll always love the state, right? Because it becomes your mother. It becomes that caregiver. And this is that psychological, sacral, energetic that is primal and feral relatively. And it runs from the fight, flight systems. And it's not known, and inside of that, then the state can do whatever it wishes, because it's always going to be the caregiver. And that snap and that break is what we're witnessing now. So one's moved from codependency to self-responsibility. And even though that codependency, there's no blame in any of this because it's unknown, and the ones do not know it's there. It's unconscious, subconscious. And it's a sneaky little bugger, especially when the ego is running the show and hiding shame underneath there as well. But these are sacral energetics that are being played out relatively in a large scale. And many, many, many are under their mother's bosom, if you will, inside the states. And the state uses that emotional tool to garner its power and authority from ones without their knowledge and without their knowing, and obfuscating all of their. Then this is how they act with such impunity in the old dark world. They knew that there was nothing that the people would just accept and get on with it. That's the problem with them. They are so selfish and so egregious and so demonic that these ones are unable to comprehend the depth to which they have sunk, and the judgment to which they will each face. They are unaware of this and just continue barreling forwards, which is beautiful for the people, because the people are now realizing that they can't receive care from that which does not care for them. In fact, quite the opposite. So this is what's currently playing out, my dear, and you outlined it so beautifully. In that people just are unaware of the. They look at these and think they don't think the things that we think of them. They don't see bumbling idiots. They see the best of the best doing the best job they possibly can, because they are caregivers. This is also, it's also upside down, you know. I'm saying this emotionless, but there is that certain sense within that this must come to an end. But nevertheless, this is the unfurling of that harmonic, or the harmonizing of those deeper, denser energetics into self-responsibility, self-accountability, and a lack of denial, which I currently consider will play out in the next 2 months. What Dave was talking about with disclosure will be played out in the following 3 months. So I think there's going to be a movement from codependency in the next couple of months, culminating in a release of information and a unification in the following 3. But this is conjecture and speculation. So all we can do is watch this unfold as we move forward. So thank you so much.
Just on that, Lee, I'll just say as well, I've just been paying attention to what's been going on the Senate floor in America and the States. And every mirror they show the other party is a mirror reflecting back to them. When that chakra loosens, it's pointed at all of it. And they keep pointing it at each other. They're just pointing it and they're just opening it up. Because if they knew what these things did to people, if in any way they allowed it.
Well, it doesn't. We're not trying to put blame on anybody here. What we're trying to point out is the bleeding obvious, without any emotion. Blame. Those that knew, and so be it. Let them know. They will deal with that themselves. Those that didn't. So be it. They will know, and let them deal with that themselves. But we are moving forwards. Yes, we know there's been some dark on the planet. Yes, we know there's been some things done. But all of this will be left behind in the past, and all of it will be released from existence once we move past it. So let's not tie into any blame situations right now and move through this with some, whatever the words are. But I like to use the word graciously, at least.
But the curtain's going to fall to people being their savior, and they're going to realize more of what that truly was.
Well, that's the divine beauty and the divine gift of the release at this point, is into one's own divine authority. So ones will save themselves, and through that savior, through wanting a savior to save them, they will learn to save themselves, and then receive and that's the grace, if you will, of the divine allocation at this stage. Each will rise and save themselves from that which was not true, i.e., fear. False evidence, right? So each's fear will be released by each, because the fear is not real. It's created by each. That's the kicker. But we're close. We're close to the end of this, I believe. Couple of 4.5 months left. Let's see how that works. Sister Emily, over to you. Wonderful to see you here. You are on mute.
Hey, everybody. I love this topic. Hey, everybody. It's so good to see you guys. I haven't attended a European meeting in like ages, a couple of years. Loving this conversation about the sacral release. I was just talking to somebody yesterday, I think, and I was like, because they were, stuck in the judgment and stuck in, that filtering process. And I helped them understand that it's just a filter. It's a filter just like any other of my filters. It's just filtering information. It's deciding what is true, what is of the higher vibration. And if it's not of the higher vibration, it's just completely rejected, right? It's like a boomerang. And I'm so grateful that we're having this conversation, because the first thing I'm seeing, man, is the anger rising up, the anger that they've been tricked, the anger that they've believed this lie. And it's all an internal process. It truly is. But in my role, I've noticed that the only thing I'm really supposed to do is just help people remember who they are within themselves, and to guide them back to themselves, and to get the focus off of me. The focus is not on me. And I keep telling people all the time, let's slow down. The GPMS.world is not mine. Let's not make it about Emily here. It belongs to you. And it takes a minute to work down into people's energetics. And once they get into the sacral, that's when they start questioning if they're worthy enough for this beautiful new system that's going to provide the abundance for themselves. That's what they're truly working through, is their own self-worth, their own self-judgment, and whether or not they are ready. And it's funny, Lee, that we keep using the word grace, because Rick told me, well, Emily, stand in your grace. For weeks, he said that. I had no idea what the heck he was talking about. None. I was like, okay, I'll do that. And then divinely, it was brought to my awareness that grace just means that you're taking all of your mistakes and making them at a much higher purpose. You find purpose in the mistakes that you've made. And that was a beautiful thing for me, because I didn't know what grace meant. I'm a warrior, as most of you know, and grace is a very challenging thing for me to embody when people are constantly threatening and attacking me. You know what I mean? It's a very challenging thing to embody when I'm still under heavy attack by outside influences. And I'm just freaking grateful that this is happening. I don't have a whole lot to add, except just to keep going forward, because the people that are out there looking for the solution, that want the solution and they want the change, they are just waiting for us to find them.
Beautiful. Well, we're waiting for them to find us as well. But there is that. I'd just like to add this at this stage, just so that we get on the same line with at least some of this. The sacral, the solar plexus, and the root are not required fifth dimension and up. They are lower energetic representations. They are for the third and fourth dimensional aspect, human only. So anybody that wishes to maintain the ideology that the sacral and the solar plexus and the root will be a part of the future new world, no. Grace is heart up. Disgrace is solar plexus down. There you go. So anger, pride, and all the other things sit down below the heart. The heart doesn't produce these things. The heart doesn't produce anger. So anything higher than the heart, where does anger come from? It's not, it's lesser. So divine righteous anger doesn't contain any of the old angers per se. It's from grace. Grace is heart up. So what Emily said there about taking the old mistakes and utilizing the higher one, absolutely. The higher is what you work on all the time, because you've learned that the lower is of no use to you. This is the release of those lower density chakral energetics that are only required to manifest into this dimensional aspect, or these low harmonics, third and fourth dimensions. But the fifth and up is heart and up. And these energetics, these emotions, these human states are less than the higher human. They are released into where they were, and we rise together into what we truly are, which is heart-based beings and up. And that opens up the rest without these denser energetics being required. So as we raise up in frequencies, we're moving forward very rapidly at this point. The harmonics of the whole planet, the frequency of the planet is increasing exponentially. This is integrating into the physical vessel, and this is causing the release, or will cause the release, of these energetic centers for those that are moving forward. They will no longer have a presence. They will no longer have a requirement. They will no longer have a purpose. If we look at that backwards, we can retroductively say they never did. but that's a later conversation. For now, yes, all of these are going to be released. So those that are holding on to limitation, those that are holding on to division and separation, those that are holding on to negative belief systems or lesser value systems, will find that they struggle to do that, because there'll be nothing left of those systems. They will disappear. And those that aren't and that are ready to move forward will be moving forward rapidly, while those that are trying to remain human will be falling behind. And again, this will be another rolling forwards, a harmonizing, a solution-based outcome as opposed to a problem-based discussion will be what we're seeing all of the time moving forward. And these limitations and separations will not exist anymore. Welcome to the first panel of 72 of this, representing itself in real time. Whether we get there on the first meeting or the second or the fifth, it doesn't matter. This is what we are doing, bringing the new world to the old, or the old to the new. It makes no difference. It's all in the same place anyway. So we are, with a lot of this, it's all very, very, very positive and very, very rapid. But it seems like it's very, very slow and very, very negative in the outside reality. Choose which viewpoint you look: positive and rapid, or slow and negative. Everybody has the freedom of choice. Emily, have you got your hand back up again? Yeah.
Lee, I just want to connect, I was discussing with a large group last night, solutions, because that's what so many people are looking for, is the solution. And what I had to interject in the group was that they're trying to come up with solutions with old tools. And you can't solve old problem. You can't come up with new solutions without new tools. And I help them see how creating the tools that you need in order, like people have forgotten that we have the power to create anything for some reason. And just bringing it into the awareness that the old tools that we were once using are just going to continue to repeat either way, any way you use them, and that you must create the new tool, and that the GPMS.world is the new tool. That when you interject it in that mindset, okay, well, these are the tools you've been using. They're not working. They're never going to work. Here's a new tool. And that concept really, really sparked their whole new thought process. So I just wanted to interject.
Perfect, because that's the shackle that's holding them in the old belief systems of limitation. We can only work within this. We can only work within that. The outside, the heart doesn't have restriction like that. The consciousness doesn't have restriction like that. We can only work within. That's laughable. We are creators and we can only work within. No, we work without. So this is the problem. Is that interjection of that. So, but those that don't believe are stuck in fear. Those that do aren't. There was another thing the other day about karma for the unforgiven, which is another thing which is beautiful. Karma is an affliction of the unforgiven. It's once forgiven, there is no such thing as karma. But many think that karma exists because they're unforgiven. Now, I would utilize the words unforgiven as they haven't forgiven themselves. Then nobody else has got to forgive them. They've got to forgive themselves. And once they do, then they release the old tools. But without forgiveness, then the old tools are all you can use, and that's karma. Okay. There's lots of us that know that isn't, and I'm not laughing at somebody, I'm just laughing at the situation. These moments that ones think that they are stuck and that they've got the truths and they're so limited, and we can only do this and we can only do that. We've got to do it slowly, we've got to do it transitionally. All of these are limitations. Take them all away, you can do anything. And that's where we are. Brother Rick, over to you, my friend. We've got about quarter of an hour, 20 minutes left, brother. If you'd like to take it into something close or closing, or just wherever it wants to go.
Oh, well, thank you, brother. Just one point I wanted to bring up again. If you take typically, I think Canada, with the government in power, probably about 270 or 300. I don't know the exact numbers, but relatively around there. With the government in Canada, you have about 300 individuals representing it. When you look at GPMS, we have over 1,000 that have consented. And when we look at
100,000.
Pardon?
You said we have over 1,000 that have consented.
No, in
100
Canada, over
No.
1,000 in
Oh,
Canada.
sorry. Yeah. Oh, clarification in Canada.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And in comparison, thank you. Yeah, in the US, you know, I don't know how big really their government is, but they have, you know, 52 states or 50, whatever it may be, and 100 senators. But you're only, you know, into the hundreds with the government in power. And in the US, we have over 3,000 consents with GPMS. Again, the point being is that with GPMS as representing individual areas or existing nations, very quickly we overpower. I'm looking for the words, and it just excluded I at the moment how I wanted to present this, but I wanted just to do for once just to look at the numbers, if you will, how many are representing Canadians now, about 300, where we have 1,000 consents in Canada. And, you know, I anticipate that most of those, perhaps 5, 6, 700, are adults. So when you look at Canada having supposedly about 300 uh, politicians representing Canada, and then we have more than that, possibly adults in GPMS.world. And when you look at each one being equal, if you will, we have them more than doubled right now with just 1,000 consents, regardless if those 1,000 consented with GPMS stand up or not, because they have consented to absolute and universal law, which does have the superiority. But I just wanted to just again draw attention to how realistically the numbers are very small that is required within GPMS as a full world representation. And again, worldwide, it's about 47,000 politicians that would be with their governments in power at any certain time. And when we look at GPMS right now, we are over triple, going towards quadruple of that representation of one standing in this absolute universal law. So we have greatly outnumbered their representation. And with the 72, I'll put quotations to 72 panel, because that number is not a definite number. You know, again, as this increases, it's no contest worldwide. So again, it's showing the inevitability of GPMS. .world. With that, I know we're getting close to the end, but we didn't have any contribution from any of our India brothers and sisters, Thailand, Philippines. Is there any updates I suggest from there? Love, light, and gratitude.
Oh, that's a beautiful sound of a pin again dropping. So who have we got here? Sister Lodi, are you still on, my dear? Ah, here we go. A little bit. There she is. Hello.
Yes, good evening, everyone. At my end, I would just like to say thank you to the brothers and sisters who have been sending me the files they have gathered previously. Most of them are members of the senior citizens group in their barangays. So hopefully more and more of them will be coming in this coming weeks, days, and months. And hopefully, as Sister Mariana had told me previously, she's planning to go back here in the Philippines. And if ever that transpires, I also want to have her with me going around the communities, the remote areas, so we can gather more more consents much faster. Yes.
Perfect. Let's see. Let's see what is brung that. Let's see what divinely aligns to that path. I know that
Yes.
it's currently it's like this. We're just not sure. So,
Mhm.
but again with the Philippines, there's so many more that are ready. It's just that their limitation or the negation within is holding them back at this stage. With they're not willing to choose something. They want to feel that they're getting something back instantaneously, and that isn't just the Philippines. This is across the planet. So that sense of reward, that sense of okay, if I do this, then what? Yeah, we're getting to a point where that is no longer tenable, and really people are at a like Michael was talking about a bit earlier. They're at the end of their wits end currently. And I think that's happening in the Philippines as well. When we were there last year, there was still a lot that would, but they just weren't sure because there's other options. I don't think there's many options left now. That's a year on, and those options haven't produced anything either, except lack of options. So GPMS is the only one that's still there, open, and is not taking anything off them with false promises. So let's see how it goes over there in the next upcoming couple of months.
Yes. In fact, I'm seeing two kinds of groups here in the Philippines. Those who are voicing out their grievances, they are fighting the old system. But those who are wanting to have the changes and practically change their l- lives, they are the silent ones, and they are the grassroots, and they are the ones who we easily find it give their consent once they've heard that the future of their children and their grandchildren are secure divine plan. So those who are uh, having their voice out and going in social media expressing that they want freedom and they are against the system, they are not yet into GPMS. But most of those in the grassroots, they are into GPMS once they heard that their future will be secured and will be in abundance soon.
There's still the work that needs to be done by those to collect all of these and bring them in. So there is and this isn't done for anybody, as we know. This is being done by everybody. That does take effort, a certain amount at least. And the first of that effort is a simple one by saying yes, please. And that's pretty much all the effort it takes actually to bring this about. So the effort that ones need to do is just say yes, please, and then not choose other stuff in the middle of it all and not get disillusioned. But nevertheless, that's where we were, not where we are. Beautiful, Sister Lodi, and I'd love to see a load more. We just don't know yet, so let's let this path unfold.
Yes, looking forward also.
And Sister Kieran's in the middle. I see. Thank you so much for Sister Kirambala there as well for all of your efforts and all of your work that's ongoing. I do appreciate it. I do see it still. It's not missed. I know Brother Pritam is busy, and I know that Team India has been busy with a lot of other, what do we call it? Uh, Other things going on in India, let's say, life. But that's all moving forward too. So that's excellent as well. Sister Mariana, over to you. Why is this? Why is this double?
Yeah, I would love to be with Lodi as soon as possible and to see, because we were seeing some new sisters also, and that they're also doing that job of going through the neighborhoods and going door to door. And this remind me, just I wanted to mention about our African brothers also.
Mariana, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, love. Can you
It's
ask
an
Lee to
echo, no?
turn his mic off? Yeah, there's a mic because Lee's got his mic on.
It's a little bit. A ver. Yeah, it's still there. He has it down, but just there. Thank you. You muted?
It's not me.
Maybe it's Michael. We have 3 computers in the same. There's great. I don't know what happened, but there's great. Thank you. It reminded me also that just Lee was saying that also we are the one doing this. We need to get out of that idea of the state that we have a saying in Spanish that is like the TT of the state. You know, everybody is just going and having their whatever they need and then going back, always going back. And we have at least we were talking with some neighbors and this generation of people that are now like between their 30s and even 40s, their parents, our parents are the ones that were the ones that the last ones that were kind of protecting that system. And there are a lot of people also and elders that they say, okay, but now we are in a place that we're receiving a pension. So we cannot go against the thing that is still giving us the money for eating, kind of. So we understand like those fears, but even then we get the elders to understand that it's also part of a legacy that they are leaving. So I think that it's very important because I see there's a lot of children. Well, children's been a target for a long time for all kind of hideous, nefarious crimes that I'm not gonna get into it. And people are starting to see that too. There's a lot of evidence, proof, and even the deceitful media is also having some of those news. So people are starting to see, and that's when I see that people are starting to make the change, putting themselves a little bit on the side, not being so selfish because they're seeing what they're doing to the children of the world. And that's not longer tolerable. And especially the elders. It's like, I don't know, I don't care about myself anymore, how things are. But I cannot keep allowing, like I can leave something, a legacy that I know that it would be something that would be protective for the children. But that's one thing that got into my mind. But first I want to see about our Africans brothers and sisters, that they a lot they have this charity homes and they have orphanages, and we understand that there's a lot of need in these places, but we also understand there's a lot of need like everywhere in the world. So please understand, people that have this organization and approach to GPMS, that it's not a place where you can come and immediately say like, we're in an urgent situation. If you're really brothers and sisters, you gotta help me. And it's like, no, we're trying to do something that it will help everybody forever. But we need to unite and to spread the voice. And there's a lot of brothers that when they come to GPMS and they say, okay, this is maybe a solution, then they start to contact everybody in the representative Telegram group or in any other groups, and they go one by one to see if they can, get some help mainly in the financial. And we totally get it, but it's brothers, it's just you're just losing your energy. We are people that we're very much focused in creating the new, so we're not gonna energize and just doing small things to a small community, so of course that we always share if we already see that it's honest fundraiser and it's true that they have an orphanage and they're taking care of the children. We can also help put in social media, getting the word out. But that's the best way we can help everybody, is to work and focus on GPMS, not just in one charity, not just in one orphanage. And also, please, brothers, if you're gonna lose time and energy contacting everyone in the list from England, from here, because we're all also trying to build something else in our own communities too. So in my case, I'm also trying to build something in the Spanish speaking communities, and also like a system with Sister Lodi. Then you get Donovan, Dean, Michael, and a few others that were not only Great Britain, but helping in India, helping in Africa. So we cannot do everything. So everybody's gonna have like somewhere they're gonna put more attention to. So like not to keep losing that energy. We're not gonna like be emotionally manipulated for all the tales that you want to tell of the special situation that anybody is going through, because we understand that in the macro there's a lot of people and we're not going to concentrate on one. We're concentrating on doing what is best for everyone. So just that. And as we will be probably having the panel of 72 representatives, and it's for now, as these meetings are only in English, it's very probable that we will have then a Spanish GPMS meeting the next day on Sunday. There are some that they would like to participate of the panel, but as they don't know English yet, we will try to do something kind of, when there's a panel, do something in Spanish to whoever wants to and doesn't know English, we can talk about it there. And just that. So we're probably going to be next Sunday 14 after the, yeah. And just because Sister Beatrice is not here, I'm just going to just give a reminder of tomorrow, today, sorry, 8 p.m. Bucharest time. We're having the North America representatives meeting tonight, later tonight. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you so much. Over to you, Brother Rick. Finish this up, I suppose.
Yeah. Thank you, Mariana, for addressing the orphanages and mostly Africa at this time. What I suggest is you articulated it very well, and if it resonates with you, make a short clip out of that and put it into our representative group so others like I may utilize your words when we sometimes get inundated with these ones, if that resonates. Thank you. Also, what I wish to say, what Mariana brought up about, let's say, seniors that are receiving benefits from the government that are afraid to go into GPMS. What we need to say to them, by them going into GPMS, it makes the governments more afraid that they don't cut off their funding, but for the governments to compete, they would actually need to raise the funding up or they lose the support of the people. So what the seniors may be thinking is not the case at all, and they will see it themselves. The more that come into GPMS, if you will, they'll see the governments try to compete with such things as a universal basic income, UBI, or more benefits, because actually the governments will try to hold on to that support from the people. So they'll try to throw them bones, if you will, which will be some form of benefits. But at the same time, it's a win-win situation for these because they'll get more benefits from a competing government the bigger that GPMS gets, and GPMS takes everyone home. So it's a misconception for ones to go into fear thinking they'd be targeted. They need to trust God more than the corrupt system already, and that's what floats them and saves them. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, so 13th, next Saturday. I will put the link up shortly for the representative panel meeting for the 72. Whether we do another Europe and East next Sunday, let's let that divinely play out this week. So the Europe and East meeting may continue. We may start to roll that out again. weekly, dependent. But the panel one is next Saturday, and I'm sure that will lead to further panel meetings. What else is there? I think I just want to thank everybody for everything that everybody does. I love you all. And as we keep going, this collapse of the external reality is it is what it is, and we know that coming out the other side of that there is just beauty and harmony and abundance and freedom and all of those grand things, and that's what we bring, and that's what we bring to the table, and that's what we bring as a solution. All of these feelings and contemplations of less, they are meaningless. They are meaningless and trivialized by what it is that we bring, and that light is inextinguishable, and it doesn't negotiate. So this is where we are, this is what we're doing, and this gets a little bit more serious as we move forward, but that's only with divine authority or authority, which it depends. And this is purely because it's necessity, and it's divine allocation. It's a hierarchy that isn't hierarchical, but nevertheless it is evidenced, and it will be evidenced more and more as we unite those that already know with those that aren't sure yet. So thank you all so much for everything everybody does and brings to the table, each and every one with their unique gifts, all bringing them together to create the whole. It's a wonderful thing to partake in, and I'm very blessed and privileged to be a part of it. Thank you all, and see you again in the not too distant. Much love, light, and gratitude.
Love, light, and gratitude.
Love everybody. Bye, Kieran.